Something strange has been happening to you lately, hasn't it? You're losing interest in people, not in a cruel way, not because you become cold or uncaring, but the conversations that used to engage you now feel empty. The activities that used to excite you now feel pointless. The relationships that used to fulfill you now feel like they're draining something essential from your soul. And the most confusing part? You don't understand why. These are good people. They haven't done anything wrong. They're the same people they've always been. But somehow, you're different now. And being around them feels like wearing clothes that no longer fit. You might be wondering if something is wrong with you, if you're becoming antisocial, if you're slipping into depression, if you're turning into someone cold and disconnected. Let me tell you something that Carl Jung understood deeply. What's happening to you isn't a problem, it's a sign that you're awakening spiritually. And this loss of interest isn't you becoming less, it's you becoming more. When you start losing interest in everyone and everything that once mattered to you, it's not because those people or things are bad. It's because you're outgrowing the frequency they operate on. Your consciousness is expanding, and the containers that used to hold your life are suddenly too small. This is one of the most misunderstood stages of spiritual awakening. People think awakening will make you more connected to others, more loving, more engaged with life, and eventually it will. But first, there's this phase, this uncomfortable, isolating, confusing phase where you lose interest in almost everything and everyone, where you feel like you're watching your own life from behind glass. If this is where you are right now, you need to understand what's really happening, because without this understanding, you'll think you're going backward. You'll think something is broken in you. You'll try to force yourself back into connections that no longer fit, and that will only make the pain worse. Before we dive into what Jung discovered about this phase of awakening and how to navigate it, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Let me explain what's actually happening when you start losing interest in everyone. Your internal frequency is changing. Think of it like a radio that's been tuned to one station your entire life. That station played certain songs, certain voices, certain messages, and you were perfectly content listening to it because everyone around you was tuned to the same station. But something shifted. Maybe it was a crisis. Maybe it was a loss. Maybe it was just time. Whatever the catalyst, your internal radio started tuning to a different frequency. At first, you could still hear both stations, the old one and the new one. But gradually, the old station started coming through fuzzy, unclear, full of static. The people in your life haven't changed. They're still broadcasting on the same frequency they always were. But you're not receiving that frequency clearly anymore. What used to sound like music now sounds like noise. What used to feel like connection now feels like interference. This is what Jung meant when he talked about the development of consciousness. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, because every time you tune to a higher frequency, you lose the comfort of the old one. Every time your consciousness expands, you outgrow the containers that used to hold your life. You're not becoming antisocial. You're becoming selective. You're not losing the ability to connect. You're losing the ability to pretend. You're not turning cold. You're tuning into something deeper that makes surface-level interaction feel increasingly unbearable." You probably noticed it most clearly in conversations. You're sitting with friends or family, and they're talking about the same things they always talk about. Gossip about people you know, complaints about work, updates about who bought what, who's dating whom, who said what to whom. And you're nodding along. You're making the appropriate sounds of agreement or surprise. But inside, you're thinking, does any of this matter? Does any of this mean anything? Why are we spending our limited time on Earth discussing things that won't matter tomorrow? It's not that you're judging them. You're genuinely not. You remember when these conversations satisfied you too, when you could lose yourself in the drama, the gossip, the analysis of other people's lives. But now you can't make yourself care. You try, you really do. You try to engage, you ask the right questions, you participate in the back and forth. But there's a disconnect, a gap between what you're saying and what you're feeling, between the person you're pretending to be and the person you're actually becoming. Jung would say this is because you're beginning to see through the game, the social game, the game where people perform certain roles, say certain things, maintain certain illusions. And once you see it as a game, you can't play it with the same seriousness anymore. The conversations haven't changed. Your friends haven't changed. What's changed is your ability to pretend that surface-level interaction satisfies the deeper hunger that's awakening within you. It's not just conversations, it's activities too. Things you used to enjoy now feel pointless. Going to parties feels exhausting. Watching television feels like a waste of time. Shopping for things you don't need feels absurd. Even hobbies that used to bring you joy now feel like you're just going through the motions. You might find yourself sitting at a social gathering, looking around at everyone laughing and drinking and having a good time and thinking, what am I doing here? These are good people. This is supposed to be fun. But I feel more alone in this crowded room than I do when I'm actually alone. Or you're watching a movie everyone says you must see, and you're watching the characters play out their dramas, and you're thinking, I can see exactly how this is constructed. I can see the manipulation, the formula, the attempt to make me feel certain things, and I can't lose myself in it anymore. This is what Jung called the withdrawal of projections. You've been projecting meaning onto external activities your entire life, believing that if you just did the right things, went to the right places, consumed the right entertainment, you would feel fulfilled. But as you awaken, you withdraw those projections. You see that the activities themselves are neutral. They can't give you what you're really looking for. And once you see that, once you really understand it, you lose interest. Not because the activities are bad, but because you've outgrown the belief that they can satisfy you. And then there are the relationships. This is perhaps the most painful part of losing interest, because you genuinely care about these people. You love them. They haven't wronged you. They're the same people they've always been. But being around them drains you now. Their energy feels heavy. Their concerns feel trivial. Their way of relating feels suffocating. You leave interactions with them feeling more depleted than when you arrived. You might have a friend who wants to vent about the same problems they've been venting about for years. Problems they're not actually interested in solving, just in discussing, and you're listening, nodding, offering advice that you know they won't take. And you're thinking, we've had this exact conversation 50 times. When does it change? When do we talk about something real? Or you have family gatherings where everyone plays their assigned role. The peacemaker, the troublemaker, the successful one, the victim. Everyone performing their part in a drama that's been running for decades. And you can't play your part anymore. You can't pretend you don't see the patterns. You can't unsee what you've seen. Jung understood this deeply. He wrote about how individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires separation from the collective. Not physical separation necessarily, but psychological separation. You have to step out of the roles you've been playing, the roles your family assigned you, the roles your friends expect from you, the roles society says you should fill. And when you step out of those roles, the relationships built around those roles start to crumble. Not because anyone is bad or wrong, but because the foundation was based on unconscious agreement, an agreement to play certain parts, to not look too closely at certain things, to maintain certain illusions. Once you become conscious, you can't maintain those agreements anymore, and the relationships either evolve to meet you at this new level, or they fade away. And most of them, if we're being honest, fade away. Here's what you need to understand. This loss of interest isn't a problem, it's protection. It's your psyche's way of creating space for what's coming next. You can't fill a cup that's already full. You can't receive the new while you're still clutching the old. Jung said, "In order to be reborn, you must first die." The old you, the one who found satisfaction in surface-level interaction, in unconscious relationships, in activities that distracted you from deeper questions. That person has to die, and this loss of interest is that death process. It feels like loss because it is loss. You're losing the comfort of not knowing, the ease of fitting in, the simplicity of being satisfied with what satisfies everyone else. These are real losses, and it's okay to grieve them. But you're also gaining something. You're gaining discernment, the ability to distinguish between what's real and what's performance, between what nourishes you and what just fills time, between relationships that honor your wholeness and relationships that require you to fragment yourself. You're developing what Jung called consciousness, and consciousness is inherently selective. It can't engage with everything the way unconsciousness can. It can't find meaning in meaningless things. It can't pretend that empty interactions are fulfilling. So, yes, you're losing interest, but what you're really doing is raising your standards. You're becoming unable to accept less than authenticity, less than depth, less than truth. And that's not a flaw. That's evolution. I know it feels lonely right now. You're losing interest in the people and activities that made up your entire social world. You're not fitting in anywhere anymore. You feel like an alien in your own life. And you're wondering, will it always be like this? Have I awakened myself into permanent isolation? The answer is no. This phase is temporary, but it's necessary. Think of it as a cocoon stage. The caterpillar has to completely dissolve before it can become a butterfly. There's a phase where it's neither caterpillar nor butterfly, where it's just dissolution, just transformation, just waiting. That's where you are now. You've dissolved out of your old form, but you haven't fully emerged into your new form yet. And in this in-between space, everything feels wrong. Nothing fits, nothing satisfies, nothing makes sense. But this is where the real transformation happens. In this space of not knowing, in this space of not belonging, in this space where you've lost interest in the old but haven't yet discovered the new. Jung would tell you to trust this process, to stop trying to force yourself back into connections that no longer fit, to stop trying to resurrect interest in things you've outgrown, to let yourself be in this uncomfortable, in-between space and see what emerges. And if you're in this space right now and need guidance on how to navigate it, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Here's something Jung understood that most people miss. This phase of losing interest and withdrawing into solitude isn't about isolation. It's about incubation. Something is growing inside you, something that needs space and silence and time to develop. In the solitude you're craving, in the absence of all the noise and distraction and social performance, you're finally able to hear yourself, your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own intuition, things that have been trying to surface for years but couldn't get through the constant stimulation and social obligation. You might notice that when you're alone now, you're not lonely, you're actually quite content. Time passes without you noticing. You're thinking thoughts that feel important, even if you can't articulate them yet. You're feeling feelings you didn't know you had. You're connecting with parts of yourself that were buried under all the roles you were playing. This is what Jung called the individuation process. It's the process of becoming a whole, integrated individual, rather than just a collection of roles and reactions. And it requires solitude. It requires withdrawal from the collective. It requires losing interest in external noise so you can finally hear the internal signal. Your soul is trying to speak to you, but it can only speak in silence. It can only be heard when you stop filling every moment with distraction, with social obligation, with the constant performance of being someone for someone else. So, this loss of interest in everyone and everything, it's your soul creating the conditions it needs to communicate with you. It's clearing the space. It's turning down the volume on everything else so you can finally hear what's been trying to reach you all along. And here's what happens next. Once you've sat in this space long enough, once you've done the inner work, once you've become familiar with who you actually are beneath all the masks and roles, you start to reconnect, but differently. You find new people, or sometimes old people show up differently. People who speak your new language, people who have also done the work, people who don't need you to perform or pretend or play a role, people who can meet you in authenticity, in depth, in consciousness. These connections feel completely different from the old ones. There's no small talk for the sake of filling silence. There's no performance for the sake of being liked. There's no adjustment of yourself to fit what they need. You just are, and they just are. And somehow, that's enough. Jung called these conscious relationships. Relationships between individuated people. Relationships where both parties have done their inner work and can meet each other as whole beings rather than as collections of needs and projections. These relationships are rare, much rarer than the unconscious connections you've left behind. But they're also infinitely more nourishing. One conscious connection is worth 1,000 unconscious ones. One authentic relationship is worth a lifetime of surface-level friendships. So you won't stay isolated forever. You won't lose interest in people forever. What's happening is that you're transitioning from quantity to quality, from breadth to depth, from many shallow connections to few deep ones. And the activities you've lost interest in, new ones will emerge, activities that actually align with who you're becoming, not activities you do because you're supposed to, or because everyone else does them, or because they distract you from yourself, but activities that genuinely express who you are, that feed your soul rather than just fill your time. So, what do you actually do while you're in this phase? How do you navigate losing interest in everyone without feeling like you're losing your mind? First, stop fighting it. Stop trying to force yourself to care about things you don't care about anymore. Stop trying to resurrect connections that have naturally run their course. Your psyche knows what it's doing. Trust that this loss of interest is serving a purpose, even if you can't see it yet. Second, give yourself permission to withdraw. You don't have to accept every invitation. You don't have to maintain every relationship. You don't have to keep showing up to things that drain you just because you always have. It's okay to pull back. It's okay to say no. It's okay to prioritize your inner work over social obligation. Third, use the solitude. Don't just sit in it feeling lonely. Use it. Journal, meditate, think, feel. Explore the parts of yourself that have been buried. Get to know who you are when you're not performing for anyone else. This is precious time. Don't waste it wishing you were somewhere else. Fourth, be gentle with yourself. This phase is hard. It's confusing. It brings up questions about who you are and whether you're doing life wrong. Give yourself compassion. Remember that transformation is messy. Remember that the caterpillar probably doesn't enjoy dissolving, but it does it anyway because something in it knows what's coming. And fifth, stay open. Don't close your heart just because the old connections aren't working anymore. New connections will come. Different connections, better connections. But they can only come if you stay open to them. If you stay willing to meet people, even if most people still don't resonate, the right ones will find you when you're ready. So here's what I want you to understand. If you're losing interest in everyone and everything, you're not broken. You're not depressed. You're not becoming cold or disconnected. You're awakening. This loss of interest is the sign that your consciousness is expanding, the sign that you're outgrowing old patterns, the sign that you're being called towards something deeper, truer, more authentic. Jung spent his life studying this process, and he found that everyone who truly individuates goes through this phase. Everyone who becomes conscious has to withdraw from the collective for a time. Everyone who awakens loses interest in the games everyone else is playing. It's not a comfortable process. It's not an easy process, but it's a necessary process because you can't become who you truly are while you're still pretending to be who everyone else needs you to be. You can't hear your soul's voice while you're still listening to everyone else's expectations. You can't step into your authentic life while you're still living the life you inherited. This loss of interest is your soul's way of saying, it's time. Time to let go. Time to withdraw. Time to go inward and discover who you really are beneath all the roles and masks and performances. So, let yourself lose interest. Let the old connections fade. Let the old activities fall away. Let yourself sit in the uncomfortable space of not knowing what comes next. Because what comes next will be more real, more authentic, more aligned with who you actually are than anything you've experienced before. You're not losing your way. You're finding it. And sometimes finding your way requires losing everything else first. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust that this loss of interest is not an ending. It's a beginning.